All right, I'm Joseph Dukeman. I'm a World War veteran. I served in Company A, 104th Infantry, 26th Yankee Division.
Okay, what do you think was your favorite part about being in the service, and maybe some of your more interesting memories or experiences that you have?
Well, 1943, I was drafted in the Army. I wanted to join the Navy, but my mother wouldn't let me go in because the ocean was too dangerous. So I ended up in the Army, I ended up in the infantry. I took my training down Camp Campbell, Kentucky, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, up to Ellis Island, over to Europe.
Okay. And what do you think maybe was one of the favorite experiences that you had, or maybe one of the worst?
Well, one of the worst experiences I had was my combat experience. A baptism of fire was in Monacourt Woods. It was a small piece of wood, and we had to straighten out the lines. When we hit them, they had 3 machine gun battalions in there, and they done a job on us.
And what do you think maybe was a really good memory you have, or a favorite experience?
Memory was serving the country and getting the war, winning the war, and getting home.
When you did you find it hard to getting reacclimated to the States after the war?
No, we landed in Hampton Beach, Newport, Virginia. We landed in, what the hell we landed in? Was in Hampton. We landed in Virginia.
Yeah, I want to say like Hampton Roads or something.
Hampton. And it was like the night before New Year's, and they said no passes, so we just flew the coop and we celebrated New Year's in Virginia. And then we came up to Fort Devens, and we got back here, and we finally got discharged. And I got out of the Army, and I went home, and it was the good day of my life, getting out of the Army.
What did it feel like when you first got home and saw your parents again, saw your mother again?
Well, it was quite a thing, because I was away for about 2 or 3 years, and it was good to get back to the family.
How do you think your service affected your approach to like daily problems in normal life? How maybe the discipline or the structure?
It didn't affect me. The war never. I just came home, went to work, and I stayed on a 5220 for a year, and then I went to work. It didn't bother me getting home. But a lot of guys it did affect, but it never bothered me.
And I remember you telling me one story about how you thought a guardian angel pushed you out of the way of a bomb.
Oh yeah,
Could you tell that story?
That was up in the Battle of the Bulge. I was coming back from mess one day, and I had the M1 strapped across my back, and they called this corner Purple Heart Corner because the Germans had the 88 still in on it. And this Corps man was loading his Jeep outside the house, and in came 3 shells. You could hear them coming, and you knew they were going to be. I was going to hit the spot where he was, but I jumped into the doorway. Something pushed me into the doorway, and they stood there, and the rounds hit, and they split him in 2. Where I was going to go, something pushed me in that door. I don't know what it was, but it saved my life.
In your combat experience, what was it like for you to serve in combat? What battles were you in, and what was it like to serve?
I fought in northern France, Battle of the Bulge, back into Germany, into Russia, into Czechoslovakia. We met the Russians, and the war was over.
Your combat, what was it like to be in combat?
Combat, it's tough to explain combat, because you got to go through it to realize what it is. You're talking to a buddy, 2 minutes later, he's dead. You get replacements in every morning. You never knew their names, last names. You knew them by the first names. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, half of them were gone.
What about your experience with some of the replacements up at the Battle of Bulge? What was it like at the Battle of Bulge?
The Battle of the Bulge was, they couldn't get the infantry replacements, so they took guys out of trucks, guys in the medical corps, and a quartermaster, and they gave them a rifle, and they stuck them up on the front lines. And none of them had any infantry training for combat. And one night in the hole, I'm talking to the guy, and he says, how do you load this gun? He was up in the front lines with an empty M1. He didn't even know how to load it. I spent the night teaching them how to load the gun. But the Battle of the Bulge was really the battle of all battles. We lost more guys up there than you could shake a stick at. And the Germans were good fighters and they were well prepared for this battle. They came white equipment and everything. We couldn't see them in the snow until they opened up. By that time we were on top of them. And that's why we took such a shellacking up there.
You mentioned the chain of command at the Battle of Bulge was you were down to a first sergeant or something you mentioned to me?
Oh yeah, well one night out of a battalion of men there was probably 100 left, and our first sergeant was a leading officer. All our officers were gone, either wounded or killed, or back in the hospital, wherever they were. Because the first guy moves gets hits first. The Germans knew that the first guy moved was the lieutenant, and they'd pick him off. It's just like we'd do them. The first guy moved was the lieutenant, we'd pick him off.
And what about the like the German structure? How you said that if you killed the leader, they didn't really know what to do.
Well, the German army was well trained, but they weren't trained like the American army, because if we had a lieutenant wiped out, somebody, the first sergeant, a platoon sergeant, and even a buck sergeant like myself would leave the battle because we knew what we were doing. But the Germans were trained for one thing: if you knocked off the German lieutenant, nobody would step up and take command, and they didn't know what to do. But in our army, a corporal could be leaving the attack. We knew what we were going to do. We were going to take a town, and that was our mission: take the town.
And what was it like fighting town by town to liberate and having to go from place to place fighting eventually towards Berlin?
Oh yeah, well, moving was mostly done on our feet. But if we were going to make an extended march, we usually rode the trucks to get to the area of the battle, the section we were going to go into. And it was hoof, 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 that's all we done. We kept marching, carrying on, that's all.
And lastly, what do you think, how did you feel when a few years ago you saw the World War II monument, that after 60 plus years that all the soldiers who had served and several who had died, thousands who died for our country were honored properly now?
Yeah, well, like? World War II memorial, that was a good weekend for us and the grandchildren. And to see 120,000 World War II veterans, we're drilling them down to nothing. They're dying by the days, because we're all up in our 80s. And it was good to see so many in one area. And the World War II memorial was something to really see. In fact, I'd like to go back.